But a couple of housekeeping things first. One, if you subscribe to NicholeChavez.com, you got an email this week with some pretty exciting news. And that is a ministry name change. So, up until now, our ministry name was Nichole Chavez Ministries. So, when we started, oh my goodness, I believe 2016, with a blog, I called it Fearless because now I realize that's what I needed to be. I didn't have a name for it, so I said Fearless because let me tell you, every time I wrote a blog, I was shaking the entire time. And anytime we published it, I felt like I was going to get sick. It was horrifying for a while. And then we have our 501c3. We're a nonprofit. And so when we did all of that, we needed a name. And I didn't have a name. I didn't know what to call it. I wanted it to be an action name. I wanted it to be like self-explanatory. And when you heard the name, it was like, yes, that's what I want to be. That's the kind of name I wanted, but just wasn't, I just didn't know what it was. So I didn't want to just name it something, a word out of the blue. So we called it Nichole Chavez Ministries, but I was never comfortable with that. I never wanted it to be named after me. I wanted it to be bigger than me. So a couple of years later, here we are with our brand new name, which is Mobilized. I am so excited, guys. It means to assemble and be ready for action. And that's what I teach, right? I teach women to unapologetically and boldly live their faith out loud. Out loud, right? Not hidden in our homes and our churches, but out loud for the world to hear. But what we also love is with Mobilize, it's to equip Christ followers. Equip Christ followers to boldly and courageously live mobilized in faith, purpose, and life. That's what we're about. That is our mission. That's our vision for Mobilize. So we are so excited about it. We're just over the moon excited about it. And with Mobilize, which I told you is about equipping the Christ follower, comes some pretty dang exciting things. In fact, we're going to have a brand new website. We'll open our virtual doors here pretty soon. But if you'd like to be a part of it, you want to know what's that all about, would you do me a favor? Just go to NicholeChavez.com, hit subscribe, and we'll send you all the information. Then you'll be able to join from one of those emails. You won't even have to worry about going to different sites. We'll send all the information to you. Just go to NicholeChavez.com and we will send you all the information because we have some incredible stuff coming up, including some monthly studies. So I love what we get to do on Thursday nights. I absolutely love it, but it's 15 to, half an hour of me talking. But a study gives us time to sit and in it, to study it, to absorb it, to stop when you need to stop, to spend time in the things that you need to spend time in. And so I'm really excited about it. It's going to be monthly studies, but to find out more about that, go to NicholeChavez.com and hit subscribe. Now, my Facebook friends, I can't see any of your comments tonight. It is so frustrating, but I know you're there. I know you're there. In fact, I can see some of your profile pictures in my head right now. But if one of you wouldn't mind just putting NicholeChavez.com in the comments, I would greatly appreciate it. Make it easy for those who like to subscribe. So tonight we're continuing our conversation about pain. And I wrote a study and a book called Silence by Pain, which is my story of how, not Silence by Pain, The Silenced Army. And one of the chapters is Silence by Pain. And we've been going through my study right here, The Silenced Army, which is the corresponding study to the book. And the study is for you. It's an incredible study. And if you go through it and you're honest with it and you're honest with God, there is so much freedom in it. Freedom. Because we live silenced. We live silenced by the things in our lives. And the enemy loves to take those things and help them take root in our lives. And then with that becomes the silence in our life. And then we're not willing to share Jesus because why would we share him? Why would we share that he can heal all pain when we walk around with pain? Why would we share him that he can free us from the hurt in our lives when we still have the hurt in our lives? So we don't. We sit silent because we don't want to be called hypocrites, right? We don't want to sell something we don't believe in or haven't experienced. And so it silences us. So we've been talking about silence by pain, identifying where pain comes from and how to silence it. And today we're going to talk about, oh my goodness, this is one of my absolute favorite stories in the Bible. And I have to tell you, I cry just about every time I talk about it and read it. And the way I wrote it in my book, from her point of view, and what that probably looked like for her, I'm telling you guys, when I wrote it, I bawled the entire time. The entire time. If you want to get the book, NicholeChavez.com, or you can go to Amazon and get it there, The Silenced Army. And so tonight, normally I read a paragraph from my study, but we're going to read the story. We're going to find it in Mark 5. So if you have a Bible nearby, go and grab it if you want to follow along. I'm reading from the NLT version here. It's just so powerful to see the story and see Jesus. And we see her and her pain and her hurt, but we see Jesus in a new light with this story. And I'm so excited about it. So Mark chapter 5, I'm going to start reading in verse 24. And you guys, go to NicholeChavez.com and subscribe. Those monthly studies are going to be so incredible because there's a whole story that happens before, during, and after the story we're about to read. And I think some of us find ourselves in the story before. That's happening during and the story after than we do in this story sometimes. And so that is a study I'm writing that you're just going to love. You're just going to love. Anyway, so we're going to start in verse 24. So Jesus went with him, and all the people followed the crowd around him. A woman in the crowd had suffered for 12 years with constant bleeding. She had suffered a great deal from many doctors, and over the years she had spent everything she had to pay them. But she had gotten no better. In fact, she had gotten worse. She had heard about Jesus, so she came up behind him through the crowd and touched his robe. For she thought to herself, if I can just touch his robe, I will be healed. Immediately the bleeding stopped, and she could feel in her body that she had been healed of her terrible condition. Jesus realized at once that healing power had gone out from him, so he turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my robe?" His disciples said to him, "Look at this crowd pressing around you. How can you ask, 'Who touched me?'" But he kept on looking around to see who had done it. Then the frightened woman, trembling at the realization of what had happened to her, came and fell to her knees in front of him and told him what she had done. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Your suffering is over." Okay, I read that story and it brings me to tears, but I also am kind of reading it through how I wrote it in the book. And because of that, it brings up a whole new level of emotion. But I want to just talk about a couple of points in this story. One of them is she had decided if I can just touch his robe, I'd be healed, right? But in the story, it says she came up behind him. And I think for some of us that have gone through a lot of pain and have a lot of hurt, which I understand, I have experienced it myself, we want to be seen. We want somebody to look us in the eye and see our hurt and see our pain and see how much damage has been done. We want somebody to see us. That's part of the healing process for us. But she had been through so much. And what she was after was not being seen, but being healed. And so I have to ask you, what's more important to you? To be seen or to be healed? To have your pain acknowledged or to be healed? For her, she didn't care. She didn't care about being seen. In fact, she didn't want to be seen. The tradition of that time is she was unclean because of this bleeding. So she wasn't even supposed to be in public. She wasn't supposed to be around other people. In fact, if she touched other people, it made them unclean. So she wasn't supposed to be in that group of people, but she saw Jesus. And she said, if I can just touch his robe, I will be healed. So my first question is, do you have to be seen? Does somebody have to look in your eyes? Or can you just determine in your heart, I just want to be healed. I'm just going to reach out to Jesus. I remember when I was hurting. I felt so alone. I told you that if you've read my book or if you've heard some of my past teachings, that my dad was physically, emotionally, and mentally abusive. And at the age of 18, it escalated to the point where I thought my dad was going to take my life. Physical abuse was just horrendous. He had me by my throat and squeezing slowly. I started losing consciousness and seeing spots. And I really thought in that moment that my life was over. And that moment stayed with me for years. It stayed with me for a really long time. And I was bitter and I was angry and I was frustrated. And nobody knew about it. I never said anything. I later found out that my brother knew because he had watched it. But I thought I was alone in it. And even though I didn't want anybody to know, I so badly wanted the pain to go away that I almost wanted somebody to see the pain. You know, I wanted somebody to acknowledge that my pain was real. I wanted somebody to give validation to my pain. And at the same time, I was hiding it and didn't want anybody to know because the consequences would have been huge. My dad was a pastor and a police officer. So the consequences to me felt like they were too big to share. But at the same time, it was too much for me to carry. And I so badly wanted to be seen. When I didn't realize for a long time is that Jesus saw me and he saw my pain, but what he needed was for me to reach out to him. He needed me to reach out and touch his robe. And the way I did it, you'll have to read the book. It's not pretty. It was nothing like her at all. It wasn't gracious. It wasn't like this. But God was there. And either way, I touched God and he healed me. He healed me. But this lady here, she says, if I can touch his robe, I will be healed. And that's the second thing I want to talk about. She says, I will be healed. Not, I might be healed. I hope this works. She had tried a bunch of things in the hopes that it would work until she came to Jesus. Then all of a sudden there was a confidence saying, I will be healed. Now, for some of us, we have to make that decision in our hearts, in our minds. We have to decide if we believe that God can do it or not. Some of us go to God day in and day out. Will you please heal me? Please heal me. Will you heal me? Without even believing that he can or he will. We have to decide in our hearts that we know who Jesus is. We trust him and we believe him. You guys know I say this all the time. God, I trust you and I believe you. Even in the times when I don't or when I'm struggling, I say it anyway. God, I trust you and I believe you. And I say, God, you know my heart. You know I'm struggling with this, but I trust you and I believe you. The posture of my heart is of trust, of a believing God, of faith. And God knows that. But this lady here says, I will be healed. She wasn't going home without it. She had already decided that she was going to be healed. But here's the next thing. It says that immediately her body was healed. Immediately. Jesus felt that this healing had gone out of him. And so he starts looking around for her. See, she didn't ask him to look into her eyes, but he, gonna make me cry, he saw her. And he wanted to look in her eyes. He wanted to tell her she was healed. It gets me every time, every single time, because you see Jesus so clear in this. And he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, which means he wants to do the same for you. And not just wants to, he can. I think that's an important distinction. He can. He will. If you reach out. So he starts looking for her in this crowd, and his disciples are like, seriously, Jesus, there's like people crowding in all around you. Are you serious? He's like, no, no, no. I know. I know. So it says then the frightened woman. See, her body had been healed, but her mind had not been. She had been dealing with sickness and pain for so long, with hope of healing for so long, of rejection. Her place, she was stuck in a place of sickness, not just in her body, but also in her mind. So when Jesus calls her forward, this frightened woman who they don't even give a name to, that just gets me every time. This frightened woman, trembling at the realization of what had happened to her, came and fell to her knees in front of him and told him what she had done. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith." Daughter. He saw her, he knew her, she was his. "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." See, she was already healed. She was already healed. We saw that earlier in verse 29. Immediately it stopped, and she could feel in her body that she had been healed of the terrible condition. So he wasn't telling her she's healed. He was telling her, go in peace. That was her mind. That was her mind and her heart. God was giving his peace to her. Jesus was giving his peace to her, saying, you are fully and completely healed, mind, body, soul, and spirit. Your suffering is over. You know, when the bruises had healed and the my mouth was cut up, I mean, you name it, it was just bad. When all of that was healed, the outward was healed, but the inside was still a disaster. I mean, bruised, cut up, a disastrous mess. My mind was a mess. So much more had to heal than just the outside. And that's what God healed when he came in to my life. He healed my heart and my mind. And every single time I tell this story and I read this, I see God saying it to me. Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Your suffering is over. My friend, that's what he's telling you. If you reach out and touch his robe with faith, saying, I know he will heal me, I will be healed, then he says to you, daughter, calling you because he sees you and he knows you. He sees the pain you have been through. He cares about the details in your life. He says, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Go in peace. Your suffering is over. So the question is, are you willing to believe that God can and wants to heal your pain? Are you willing to trust him, to believe him when he says he wants to? Are you willing to not be seen and not be heard, and your pain not be seen or even validated or heard, your story heard, but just to go straight to Jesus with the story? Are you willing to do that? If so, my friend, do it tonight. Don't let another minute go by. And I know from experience, it's a process. There are moments like this where Jesus immediately will heal. And then there are other times where it's a process. But the process still brings you to Jesus. The process still brings you to healing. The process still brings you to Jesus. And I'll say that over and over. It still brings you to Jesus. And that's what the most important thing is. She went through a process that brought her to Jesus. She went through a process, right? And later on this week, I'm sorry, guys. This story just every single time just gets me because it's so beautiful what Jesus can do for us and what he can do for you. I'm going to read just from page 42 if you have the study. With faith stronger than your pain, you tell yourself as she did, if I can just touch his robe, I will be healed. Then Jesus, with love in his voice and in his eyes, allows healing to flow out of him and into you. Then he looks at you and says, go in peace. Your suffering is over. How incredible is that, guys? If you don't have this study or this book, please get it. Pick it up. It is so powerful to see God's word, contextualize it to your story, your life, and see how Jesus can heal you and who he is Like the character of God, the character of Jesus is in the Bible, and to see it come to life through some of these stories of what he can do for you and wants to do for you is is powerful. It's life-changing. It's healing. So make sure you get the book. Make sure you get the story. And just know when I wrote all of this, I cried like a baby. I cried the entire time. You can ask my husband. So I'd write a chapter and then read it to him at the end and just I couldn't even get the words out, just like I did now. I would just sob because it's so real who Jesus is, and it's I have the privilege of a lifetime to share Jesus with you, to share who he is, what he wants to do for you, what he's capable of doing for you. If you just reach out and touch the hem of his robe, just reach out to him. So incredible, so life changing. And like I said, there is a whole story before this and a whole story after this. Jesus was actually on his way uh, to heal somebody else when he stopped for this woman. And when he stopped for her, the servant of the guy who's taking Jesus to his child said, "It's too late. She died." And he was like, "What?" I think some of us find ourselves right there, but I'm writing a whole study on that because I think some of us find us in that place where it feels like he's healing everybody else and he's forgotten about you, like he stopped along the road for everybody else, but not for you. Let me tell you, Jesus sees everyone. He knows what's going on, but there's a whole study coming out on that, and I don't want you to miss it. NicholeChavez.com. Hit subscribe. So incredible. Guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I am sorry I was a blubbering mess. But it's so, it just gets me every time. It seriously gets me every single time. It's so incredible. Hey, last one more reminder that starting in May, I think last time I said March, not March, in May, I'll be going live on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. So we won't do Thursday evenings anymore. We're going to do Wednesdays, 1 p.m. Eastern. The reason is because of those monthly Bible studies that are going out, those monthly studies that are going out. We're going to be spending time in the evenings with that group of ladies that are going through those studies. So I can't be in two places at once. I don't know. It's just one of those things. So I'll be doing Wednesdays, 1 o'clock. There's always the replay. And you know that if you miss this and you don't want to scroll through Facebook or Instagram trying to find it, you can subscribe. Again, NicholeChavez.com, broken record. But we'll send it directly to you, what you miss on Thursday night. So you don't even, or Wednesdays afternoons, you don't even have to miss it or worry about missing it or trying to find it. We will send it directly to you, as well as all the other exciting news that's coming up. So I love you, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I pray that this has blessed you above and beyond. And yet there's some people in your life that are hurting. It's okay to share this with them. It's okay to tag them in this so they can hear the freeing and good news of Jesus. That healing is not impossible, that they don't have to live with it for the rest of their lives. That Jesus not only can heal them, but wants to heal them. Mind, body, soul, and spirit. All of the above. Complete healing, top to bottom, inside and out. So we can live free. So we have our voice to share Jesus. So we have true experiences that we can share Jesus. Because, we can share all we want, and people can argue it, but they cannot argue your story. They cannot argue what you yourself have experienced. And sometimes they just need to hear that what he did for you, he can do for them. And so share the story, or share this with them, or tag them in it so they can watch it and hear about the freeing and good news of Jesus. I love you, my friends. Have a fantastic evening. If you're on my She Connects group, we'll see you on Monday for our one scripture verse a week that we memorize, that we unpack, we implement in our lives. Powerful word of God. She connects with God. We will see you guys there on Monday. Love you.